Kenjaku WIll Win. Kenjaku is shaping up to become one of the greatest antagonists in shonen, and every bit of his plan we got shown indicates how intricate and thought out Gege has written this mad scientist. But will Kenjaku's plan succeed? First, Kenjaku doesn't take L's. His resume since coming into the modern day jujutsu world is flawless, getting cursed spirit manipulation from Gato, which is a technique that fits him perfectly, as well as expanding on the technique and finding the mysteries of Uzumaki to use it perfectly. The Kamo disrespect. Man went to his house and took everything from him and laughed at him after when he said, "Will you kill me?" He got Mekamaru to run surveillance for him for 7 months and then got him killed straight after. And don't sleep on Mekamaru's potential. He made contingencies for Gojo, made surveillance, had a test project in the absolute Mekamaru, and his puppet manipulation could have been a great ally to our main cast if he had managed to survive the encounter with Mahito in Kenjaku. He manipulated the disaster curses to help him with his plans, and then Uzumaki'd Mahito to gain his ability. He created the perfect vessel in Yuji to suppress Sukuna, and he sealed his biggest opposition in the Six Eyes user in Gojo Satoru. He's currently manipulated the Japanese government for his benefit, and now he's manipulating the entire world for his benefit and to begin his whole plan. He was defeated previously by Six Eyes user but still managed to cling on to life in a period where his full plan can now come to fruition. How do you stop a 1,000-year-old hustler? But first, what is Kenjaku's plan? Kenjaku's plan as it stands is to optimize curse energy, and he wants to create chaos that he himself cannot control to further human evolution. He also wants to, and as of the current chapter, with him beginning to advise curse energy to other surrounding countries, the worst case scenario for our main characters look likely. He also wants to merge with Tengen, which could potentially showcase the worst case scenario with him accessing and being able to control all the barriers in Japan, and this could become a world scale phenomenon. He can successfully gain world superpowers interest in the curse energy, and this would be a growing problem for things to come later. Regardless of whether they successfully capture sorcerers to experiment on them and bring them back to their respective countries, Kenjaku's making these countries aware of this new potential energy source means there will be a constant threat to Japan, who have the majority of Jujutsu sorcerers. This leads to my first point to why Kenjaku will win. He wants to create chaos he cannot control, and regardless if he survives, the constant need for curse energy will always be there. He has inadvertently created a demand for curse energy that will continue to be constant, meaning these superpowers after their first invasions won't just back down and will be continuously trying to gain these resources. Furthermore, these superpowers have enacted a war with Japan. That's something that just won't just be forgotten from the Japanese point of view, and they're being invaded by foreign countries. This will keep the hatred between the nations, and the constant battle between protecting their people / sorcerers will be constant, as from the country's POV, they do not understand they are being manipulated by Kenjaku. In addition, this will cause an influx of negative emotions, meaning the cycle of curses will become far more stronger and apparent and potentially a worldwide scale. If the superpowers invade and lose, they'll be mad, causing more negative emotions to continue and will most likely go back to invade later on in the future. The Japanese ones are the people being invaded, meaning their negative emotions will skyrocket, and this will cause disaster curses and major curses to come back stronger and even worse than before. Furthermore, we could potentially see a huge war curse, with the fear of war being prevalent, and Kenjaku has made a near perpetual cycle of hatred to continue, which will cause curse energy to be the strongest it has been. How do you defeat Kenjaku? He's already lost in traditional sense to previous Six Eyes users, even though we don't know necessarily the logistics of how the fight went. But he's found ways to survive, and he has an immortal technique allowing him to inhabit different bodies. This means making him lose in the conventional means just doesn't seem so likely, and there has to be more to his ability that we just don't know. This all points out to Kenjaku winning, and he's put himself in a situation where regardless of he lives or dies, his ultimate goal of optimizing curse energy and creating chaos he can't control will occur. But who's the person who poses the biggest threat to Kenjaku? And in my opinion, it is Yuki, And if you haven't got your Yuki stocks, it's time to start investing. First, her ideology is the complete opposite of Kenjaku, and she predicted the current events to come, making me think this dynamic between Yuki and Kenjaku will be one of the most important. She's the only registered special grade that we haven't explored enough of, and her strong beliefs in removing curse energy can be important to why she doesn't partake in jujutsu missions and could have key information about the outside world to potentially ease relationships or provide key info to our main cast. Tengen stated that this wasn't the first time they had met, meaning a previous understanding of how her plan could potentially unfold could be key with the future interaction of Kenjaku, Tengen, Choso, and Yuki. Finally, she has key interests in heavenly restriction, and these are known as the breakers of fate. This indicates to me that she could be an important person who can further unlock the potential of heavenly restriction. But why is she Kenjaku's nemesis? Currently unaware of her strength, but the opposing ideals is important because it's a key plot point that can undo Kenjaku's plan. The removal of cursed energy makes everyone normal, and it will prevent worldwide chaos from continuing because the renewable energy source would have disappeared, meaning foreign superpowers will have no interest in invading Japan no more. In addition, it will break up the potential use of curses and the continuous cycle, meaning curses will become non-existent, the need for jujutsu sorcerers will become negligent, and they'll be in a society where it's completely different from the jujutsu sorcerer's perspective that the need for curse energy will become not apparent. This means that Kenjaku's main plan would have failed, and Yuki would have created her perfect world that she has been trying to do so. Now, with everything said and the potential person who could obviously stop his plan being Yuki, I believe Kenjaku's plan will succeed and he will come out with the dub regardless if he survives or not. The reason I say this, if we go through every bit of plotline and intricacies within the story, he has a part to play in it. Whether that was him being the reason why Yuji ended up having the first finger, or is it now that the whole culling game has begun? Even if we go back to the events of Shibuya, this has all happened with Kenjaku, as well as additional with some luck to go on his side with getting things such as Geito's body, and obviously Riko being able to merge with Tengen. But for the most part, he's the mastermind between every big event that's happened in the story, and I think out of the main characters in our story, he's the hardest to predict the outcome of his story. If his plan succeeds, he still can die or live, and him surviving isn't integral to his plan succeeding. He wants to create chaos that is out of control, and the current story events is picturing to that event becoming more likely. He's in a situation where he wants our main cast to develop, which we have briefly been seeing in the culling games. We've seen great development from our main cast with more things to come, especially specifically people such as Megumi and Yuji, and potentially Nobara if she's to come back, are people who we're expecting to have further growth to become important members in the final arc. But because of that, it means he probably has a level of contingencies or rating for these characters' development, and this could be evident with even the first part with him not necessarily finding Yuta as a major threat. It seems as if his combat prowess seems to be somewhat good, with a lot of people speculating for him to be very strong, as such as I do. But more than just his strength, he has such a grip onto the whole story that his outcome just wouldn't be satisfying with it going out in a grand way. And in my opinion, moving on to that, I believe it just seems more likely with him winning. JJK has shown a good example of morally grey characters in general, having more realistic approaches onto the outcome of their circumstances. Moreover, we've seen different characters begin to get to points where they've managed to obviously break our main characters, but they come up with some level of a dub at the end. Mahito completely changed Yuji's conviction and his whole mindset, while still obviously taking away some of Nanami and potentially Nobara, but Yuji still managed to overpower him at the end, even though it was at the loss of something. So does this mean that Kenjaku can potentially create the chaos that he needs, but our main cast will end up defeating him, but it would be the loss of his events to come into fruition? This moves on to my thing of, for example, the concept of ego being pushed out in individuality. Kenjaku seems very self-centered on his plan, and even quotes such as "I don't know what regret feels like anymore" means he's gone through so much things throughout his past that his potential backstory can come full circle to complete his character. Whatever it is that he's looking for to make this level of chaos, in a way that he wants to maximize the use of curse energy. He's taking Geto's ideology and taking it to a whole step further in a way that only he can because of how important and integral he is with every plotline. We still have yet to see things with his past relationships with these incarnated sorcerers, but the fact that he can create all these sorcerers from the past to come back to even venture in his cunning game, it means he just has a whole new level of grip onto the story that it just, in my opinion, wouldn't make sense for him not to win. Now finally, I'm going to conclude because people are going to be like, well, if he wins, that's not necessarily the shonen ending or something, and I think that depends on your interpretation. He could still create that chaos and end up dying, but we could get to a new situation where they adapt to the society or something more happens within the story. I think the potential of Kenjaku's conclusion will be one of the best, and I'm excited to see how Gege ends up writing this mad scientist in conclusion. Well, thank you guys for watching. Do you think Kenjaku will win or will he lose? If you want to see more anime merchandise, check out the affiliate links down below in the link tree, and make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe.